What's up, Zach here, and today I've got my top 5 basketball shoes for the 2024 NBA playoffs and summer 2024. Here we go. And coming in at number 5, this was a really tough one because I feel like this number 5 spot really could have been occupied by one of 3 shoes, and didn't just want to jump on the hype train of this shoe, but considering the performance and what it does for the profile, I really had to put it in there. It was really between this shoe, Sabrina 1, Way of Wade 808. They all were kind of in that caliber. But coming in at number 5 this year is the Anta Kai 1. And like I said, the Sabrina 1, the Way of Wade 8083 Ultra V2, as well as the Kai 1, they all are really wicked performing shoes. They're also very quick, very shifty in just really small areas, right? You can really just whip that shoe around. The reason I like the Kai 1, number 1, it's the only one with a dorsal retention strap, which you know I love. And number 2, though, it gets you really low to the ground without bottoming your foot out into the ground, right? With the full bed of thermoplastic Peba foam under there, plus that super broad shank. So you're getting all the same playability of the best Kyrie models from the Nike line, but with some more premium materials and a really well thought out ratio of stack height and midsole foam composition. And coming in at number 4, probably the most innovative shoe I've seen this year, both with aesthetics as well as performance, and that is the Adidas Harden Volume 8. And the reason I like these, like the Volume 7s, is you get the slipper tongue feel, but with the containment of a traditional 3-piece tongue. These EVA arches that back up the lace line provide most of the containment of the shoe. Honestly, they feel great, they contain really well, and because of the jet boost in the midsole plus the molded shank on the bottom, they still really transition step very easily for a shoe with the big profile of this. No, I didn't like it as much as the 7s, its predecessor, but in terms of updating the lineup to jet boost, as well as, you know, kind of keeping the same design philosophy of the 7s, and really at least putting some thought into innovation, I still think these more than deserve to be in a top 5 list. And coming in at number 3 is a shoe that's been making its way on to, I don't know, like every list I seem to be making recently, and that is an oldie but a goodie now. I can't believe I'm saying oldie, but the New Balance 2-Way V4. You know, honestly, this came out a little bit ago and it made it on my previous top 5 list, but even with all the amazing shoes that have come out recently by so many different brands, the simplicity and the ruggedness of the V4, the playability and the protection of it, still really cut through all of those other shoes, right, except for a couple of them, and still just make one of the best performing shoes out there. Honestly, this one, the number 2 and number 1 shoe, they all could be number 1, to be honest. You know, they're all so good. And, you know, like I said, the V4, it's a simple shoe, right? There's really not a lot of bells and whistles on it, but the design and the performance of it, the protection of it, honestly, it's unmatched except by, you know, in my opinion, just a few shoes out there. And speaking of a few shoes out there, I do want to just make mention of the elephant in the room here with the Li-Ning Ushuai 18 Ultra, as well as the Li-Ning JB2. Both of these shoes got incredibly high URS ratings, and they both deserve to be on this list, except for when I make these lists, I have to take into account how easy it is to get these shoes. If it's hard to get them, or if they're not readily available in most parts of the world, I have a hard time putting them on the list, just because if you can't get them, what's the point of having this list, right? People use this list as part of a buyer's guide, as well as, you know, the ultimate basketball shoe buyer's guide with, you know, with all the details of, you know, which shoe is best for each person, which I'll link to, and which comes out in sequence after this video does. So these 2 shoes definitely deserve to be on this list. Number 1, they are pretty expensive shoes. I do think that for the right person, yeah, sure, they're worth it if you want the performance of them, but I think more than that, it's the availability. So if they do become more readily available, or if they are available where you are and you can get your hands on them pretty easily, then yes, they more than deserve to be on this list. But at least from the comments I've seen, and after putting the videos together, trying to find them right, to put links in the description, right now they're just a little bit hard to get. That might change, hopefully, because they are such amazing shoes. And coming in at number 2, you know, honestly, this top 5 list, I know I keep saying it every time, but they just keep getting harder and harder to do because more companies keep coming out with just a deeper and deeper lineup of amazing shoes. But in the number 2 slot this time around is the Way of Wade All City 12. And if you've watched my recent top 5 outdoor basketball shoes list, you'll know why I like these so much for outdoor courts, but even on indoor courts. Number one, with the Pebax-based foam, just how bouncy these things are, but how stable they are too, which is such a tough needle to thread with that type of foam. The double shank, and then of course, you know, the tread profile of these, although can get a little bit narrow for certain foot types, the actual traction of them and the stability of the tread on these, really, in terms of putting these on indoor or outdoor courts, kind of an all-around shoe. And honestly, for Way of Wade, this is a little bit more of a simple shoe, kind of like the New Balance 2-Way V4. Kind of see simple a lot of times beats complicated in terms of shoes. As long as you're paying attention to how those materials come together to make a whole from the sum of all the parts, usually, if you've got the right engineering, you're gonna come up with a pretty good shoe. Before I get to the number 1 shoe, I do wanna make mention of the most fun shoe that I've had on my foot since the last top 5 list till this one. And honestly, this one is stuck out in my head as one of the most fun shoes I've ever play tested on this channel. Just the feeling, it's just, you kind of have to experience it, you know, for yourself. And that is the Under Armour Flow Future X Elite. Now this one has a pretty similar base to the Curry Flow 11 with that dual density flow foam underneath of there, the huge shank. The uppers on these two, I mean, I hate to use the word flow because it's such a pun, but the way these things interact with your foot, the way they perform underfoot, it is just one of the most fun shoes to put on a hardwood court, and I had such a great time playing in them. Not maybe up to the level of the 5 shoes that are in this list, but if you were looking for a super fun shoe to play in, just something, trust me, you won't forget that you played in, these are an awesome pickup. And like I said with the Flow Future X, there are lots of people that said that was their top shoe this year, and that's because there is no one best shoe for everybody. There's just a best shoe for you. So if you are looking for specific stats on shoes, if you're just looking for one thing, length of a shoe, width of a shoe, its breathability, really any test I do on this channel, those are all categorized in a Google Sheet that you can sort by whichever category you feel like. That is linked in the description below as the 2024 basketball shoe guide. It's an invaluable guide to me just for putting all these videos together and also just categorizing shoes and to see where the trends are going. It is amazing to see kind of where trends go with shoes just by checking out that sheet. So if you do want to check that out, link is in the description below. And coming in at number 1 is a shoe that from the last generation to this generation, in some instances was literally a worst to first situation. And the previous generation of the shoes, I had an extra pair, gave to my father, and then subsequently gave them right back to me because they were so uncomfortable. And from that generation to this generation, you know, this generation is one of the most comfortable shoes I've really ever put on. One of the best mixes of performance, comfort, and protection, and that is the New Balance Fresh Foam BB V2. And before I get into this shoe, I know what you're writing in the comment section right now. Why is the AE1 not on this list? Well, that's because this channel is the Foot Dr. Zach channel. I have to look at the stability of these shoes and the profile of them for multiple people, and the AE1 to me just is not as stable as something like the Harden Volume 8, which has a pretty similar midsole setup, but has all the, to me, has all the best parts of the AE1, but is much more stable, has, you know, has all those other people covered. So if I'm gonna put one of those shoes on the list, it was gonna be the Harden Volume 8. I know there are a lot of people that love the AE1, and I think it's a fine shoe. For me, it just didn't tick the boxes that all these other shoes ticked, like the New Balance Fresh Foam BB V2, which, you know, I liked the silhouette of the V1, but it was just, like I said, just an uncomfortable shoe, especially in the forefoot and the uppers there. Whereas on this model with that full bed of Fresh Foam X plus the molded bottom loaded shank, I mean, this thing's like playing on a cloud, really. And then the outsole tread, I thought they had something going there with the first version of it, and I'm not sure if they tuned the rubber a little bit differently, what is going on in this version of it, but whether this tread is completely clean or filled with dust, it still has some of the most confident grip I've ever seen on an indoor or outdoor court. It just has just enough give so you're not rolling over, but enough grip that you know that you're gonna stop when you need to stop. But what I found was that even though they're not the fastest shoes on the planet, that Fresh Foam X mix combined with the silhouette as well as the grip and just the ease of transition of step of these really made these, to me, perform a lot like the 2-Way V4, but maybe just a little bit more of a rugged package, right? Just a little bit more stout underfoot. I can't believe that there was a New Balance shoe that I liked more than the 2A V4. And to me, I don't think New Balance has ever come up twice on one of my top 5 basketball lists, but I think they're using what they've figured out in that 2A line from the V3 and the V4, how good they were, and are starting to implement them into other shoes. So hopefully that continues in the New Balance line, because it's really been shocking how improved that line has gotten year over year. So love to hear your thoughts. What shoes are in your top 5 list this year? I'm sure I'm gonna read a lot of AE1 on that. That is a good thing. That means there's enough shoes out there that fit enough different people, and that's what we want, right? You wanna be able to find the best shoe for you, not the best shoe, but the one that fits you the best. So, like I said, let me know in the comments down below what you thought your top 5 shoes have been, and like I said, it's just been nuts recently, and I really only think that's gonna get more nuts with how many shoes these companies are pumping out. So if you do wanna check out any of the shoes on this list or the top 5 outdoor shoe video, I will leave those linked up above, and make sure you subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.